Hi everyone, and welcome back our channel. Have you ever said something you wished you could take back? Or sent a message while you were angry, only to regret it a few minutes later? Most mistakes are not made because we don't know what's right. They happen because our emotions speak faster than our wisdom. A few seconds of anger can damage years of trust. A moment of fear can stop us from taking the right opportunity. And one emotional decision can change the direction of an entire life. The truth is, emotions are not the enemy. They are a natural part of being human. But when emotions take control, clear thinking quietly disappears. Today's story is about a man named Daniel. He was intelligent, hardworking, respected by the people around him. Yet one habit kept creating the same problem. Whenever his emotions became stronger, his judgment became weaker. Everything began to change on the day one simple mistake forced him to face a difficult truth. A calm mind sees what an emotional mind cannot. Let's begin. Part 1. One click too fast. Daniel was 32 years old. He worked as a sales manager for a growing company. His team respected him. He worked hard. He solved problems quickly. And he cared deeply about doing a good job. But there was one habit he had never learned to control. He reacted before he reflected. One Tuesday morning, Daniel opened his email and found a message from an important client. The client was unhappy. They believed the company had missed an important deadline. As Daniel read the email, his face became tense. He knew the information wasn't correct. The delay had not been caused by his team. Without taking a breath, he placed his hands on the keyboard. His fingers moved quickly. Every sentence defended his team. Every paragraph explained why the client was wrong. When he finished, he read the email only once. Then he pressed send. For a brief moment, he felt better. He believed he had protected his team. 10 minutes later, his manager walked into his office. "Daniel, did you reply to the client already?" "Yes. I wanted to." His manager nodded slowly. The client sent another email. Daniel opened it immediately. This time, the message was different. The client had attached a file. It showed that an updated schedule had been sent 3 days earlier. Not to Daniel's team, to another department. The misunderstanding had never been the client's fault. It had happened inside the company. Daniel looked back at the email he had just sent. Every word now felt heavier. He had defended himself before understanding the whole story. He leaned back in his chair and closed his eyes. One hurried decision had turned a simple misunderstanding into an uncomfortable situation. That afternoon, Daniel called the client. He apologized sincerely. The client accepted his apology with kindness. But after the call ended, Daniel couldn't stop thinking about what had happened. The mistake hadn't come from a lack of knowledge. It had come from one emotional moment. As he shut down his computer that evening, one quiet thought stayed with him. If 1 minute of anger could change so much, what else had his emotions been deciding for him all these years? Part 2. The pattern. He never saw. The next morning, Daniel arrived at the office earlier than usual. He placed a cup of coffee on his desk and opened his laptop. The email from the client was still there. He read his own reply again. This time, he noticed something he had missed before. He hadn't asked a single question. He hadn't checked the facts. He had simply reacted. Daniel closed the email and leaned back in his chair. It wasn't the first time. A memory quietly returned. A few months earlier, one of his teammates had made a mistake during an important presentation. Before anyone understood what had happened, Daniel had spoken sharply in front of the whole team. Later that day, he discovered the mistake had been caused by incorrect information from another department. He apologized. His teammate accepted it. But something had changed. The young employee became quieter in meetings. He shared fewer ideas. Daniel remembered thinking, why has his confidence disappeared? Now he knew. Another memory followed. One evening, his younger sister had called him after a difficult day. She only wanted someone to listen. Instead, Daniel interrupted her again and again. He offered advice before she finished speaking. Finally, she laughed softly. "You always try to fix my problems." She paused. "Sometimes I just want my brother." At the time, Daniel hadn't understood what she meant. Now her words sounded completely different. He wasn't only reacting to difficult situations. He was reacting to people, trying to solve, trying to defend, trying to control, without slowing down long enough to understand. That afternoon, Daniel walked to the small cafe across the street. He sat alone with his coffee. The cafe was quiet. People spoke softly. No one seemed to be in a hurry. He wrapped both hands around the warm cup and watched the steam rise into the air. For the first time in many years, he didn't reach for his phone. He simply sat in silence. One thought kept returning. It wasn't anger that caused most of his mistakes. It was the speed of his reactions. His emotions arrived first. His understanding arrived later. As he looked into the still surface of his coffee, a simple question came to his mind. What would happen if I gave myself one quiet minute before every important decision? He didn't have the answer yet, but for the first time, he believed that 1 minute might change far more than he had ever imagined. Part 3. The Glass of Water. That Friday afternoon, Daniel stayed late to finish a report. The office was almost empty. Most people had already gone home. As he walked toward the break room for a cup of coffee, he saw Grace sitting by the window. A clear glass of water rested on the table in front of her. She smiled as he walked in. "Long week?" Daniel let out a quiet laugh. "You could say that." She noticed the tired look on his face. "Would you like to sit for a minute?" Daniel nodded. For a while, neither of them spoke. The room was peaceful. The only sound came from the rain tapping gently against the windows. Finally, Daniel broke the silence. "I've been thinking about something." Grace waited. "I keep making mistakes. Not because I don't know what to do, because I react too quickly." Grace looked at the glass of water. Without saying a word, she gently stirred it with a small spoon. The water began to move. Tiny waves spread across the surface. She pushed the glass a little closer. "What do you see?" Daniel looked down. "My reflection." Grace smiled. "Look again." The water was still shaking. His reflection had become blurred. "It isn't clear anymore," he said. Grace nodded. "Would you trust that reflection?" Daniel frowned. "No." She placed the spoon on the table. Neither of them touched the glass again. Slowly, the water became still. The surface turned smooth. His reflection appeared once more. Clear, calm, exactly as it had been before. Grace spoke softly. The water didn't become smarter. It simply became still. Daniel kept looking at the glass. He didn't need an explanation. He already understood. His mind was no different. When anger, fear, or frustration took over, everything became unclear. He assumed. He judged. He reacted. Not because he lacked wisdom, because he couldn't see clearly. Grace picked up the glass and handed it to him. "Your emotions are real," she said. "They deserve to be felt." She paused. "But they don't deserve to make every decision." Daniel held the glass in both hands. The water was perfectly still. He thought about the email, his teammate, his sister. None of those moments had needed a faster reaction. They had needed a calmer mind. As he placed the glass back on the table, he smiled for the first time in days. "I've spent years trying to control other situations." He looked quietly at the water. "Maybe the first thing I need to calm is myself." Grace smiled. She didn't add another word. She didn't need to. The answer Daniel had been searching for was already resting quietly in the glass before him. Part 4. One quiet minute. Daniel didn't wake up as a different person the next morning. He still felt stress. He still became frustrated. He still had moments when his emotions rose without warning. The difference was simple. He stopped trying to react immediately. Instead, he gave himself one quiet minute. The first opportunity came sooner than he expected. On Monday morning, a coworker rushed into his office. "We have a problem," she said. "The client wants to change everything." A month earlier, Daniel would have answered at once. He would have started giving instructions before hearing the whole story. This time, he took a slow breath. He remembered the glass of water. "Tell me what happened," he said. His coworker explained the situation. The client wasn't changing the entire project. They only wanted to adjust one section. The problem was much smaller than it had first seemed. Daniel smiled. "I'm glad I listened first." His coworker smiled back. "So am I." A few days later, another test arrived. Heavy traffic made Daniel late for an important meeting. As he entered the conference room, someone said, "We've been waiting for you." For a moment, he felt embarrassment turn into irritation. He wanted to defend himself. He wanted to explain every detail. Then he paused. One breath. One quiet moment. He looked around the room. "I'm sorry for keeping everyone waiting. Let's begin." No excuses, no arguments. The meeting continued without tension. That evening, Daniel called his younger sister. As they talked, she shared another problem from work. More than once, Daniel wanted to interrupt with advice. Instead, he asked, "What do you think you want to do?" There was a brief silence. Then she smiled. "I think I already know." She laughed softly. "I just needed someone to listen." Daniel smiled too. This time, he understood. Sometimes people don't need quick answers. They need a safe place to think out loud. Later that night, Daniel filled a glass of water and placed it on the kitchen table. He watched the surface become completely still. Then he wrote one sentence on a small piece of paper and placed it beside the glass. Pause before you decide. It wasn't a rule. It wasn't a promise. It was a reminder. Because he knew that emotional control wasn't about becoming emotionless. It was about creating enough space for wisdom to quietly catch up with emotion. And sometimes, one quiet minute was all the space he needed. Part 5. The Calm Decision. A few weeks later, Daniel's team met with one of the company's biggest clients. Everyone knew the meeting was important. Months of work depended on the decision they would make that afternoon. The presentation began smoothly. Then, halfway through, the client closed the folder in front of him. "I'm not convinced," he said. "I don't think this plan will work." The room fell silent. Daniel felt the familiar rush of emotion. His heart beat faster. 100 answers filled his mind. He wanted to defend the team's work. He wanted to explain every detail. He wanted to prove they were right. Then his eyes stopped on a glass of water sitting in front of him. For a brief moment, he simply looked at it. The surface was perfectly still. He took one slow breath. The room waited. Instead of answering immediately, Daniel asked, "Would you mind telling us what concerns you the most?" The client looked surprised. Then he began to explain. It wasn't the entire plan that worried him. It was one small detail that could easily be improved. For the next 15 minutes, the conversation changed completely. No one argued. People asked questions, ideas were shared, solutions appeared. By the end of the meeting, the client smiled. "I appreciate the way you listened today. I came here expecting a debate. Instead, I found a conversation." After the meeting, Daniel's manager walked beside him. "You handled that beautifully." Daniel smiled. "I almost reacted the old way." "What stopped you?" Daniel thought for a moment. "I remembered that emotions speak first." He looked back through the meeting room window. "I wanted understanding to speak last." His manager nodded. "I hope the whole team learns that." That evening, Daniel returned home with a quiet sense of gratitude. He filled the same glass with water and placed it on the kitchen table. The surface reflected the evening light. Still, clear, peaceful. He smiled as he looked at his reflection. The glass hadn't changed. The water hadn't changed. Even his emotions hadn't disappeared. What had changed was the space between feeling and responding. And inside that small space, Daniel had found something stronger than anger, something wiser than fear. The freedom to choose his next step with a calm and steady mind. Ending. The space that changes everything. Daniel didn't stop feeling angry. He didn't stop feeling disappointed. He didn't stop feeling afraid. He was still human. The difference was this. He no longer allowed his emotions to make every decision. He learned to pause, to breathe, to listen, and then to choose. That small pause changed the way he worked, the way he spoke, the way he treated people, and the way he treated himself. Maybe you've had moments like Daniel, a message sent too quickly, words spoken in anger, a decision made before you understood the whole picture. We've all been there. The good news is that every new moment gives us another choice. The next time your emotions become strong, don't rush to react. Take one slow breath. Give yourself one quiet minute. Sometimes, that single minute is the difference between regret and wisdom. Now I'd love to hear from you. What helps you stay calm when your emotions take over? Share your thoughts in the comments. Your experience may help someone who is facing the same challenge today. If this story helped you improve your English or gave you a new way to think about your emotions, please like this video and subscribe to the channel. Every story we share is written to help you learn natural English while discovering simple lessons that make everyday life wiser, calmer, and more meaningful. Until then, slow down, take a deep breath, trust your calm mind, and remember, the strongest decisions are not made in the loudest moments. They are made when your mind becomes quiet enough to see clearly.